Discussion on the MWBE ordinance. Commissioner Rouse, you want to tee this up? I think Mr. Hayden and his team are here to present the report, but if you want to tee it up.
Yeah, I asked for this discussion today because I just want to have an understanding of what we're doing to address the disparity that was found over, I would imagine it was about 10 or 15 years, and how we are monitoring, making sure that we don't get back in that position again.
And before Mr. Hayden begins his presentation, I want to remind the Commission that when I came on, I moved Mr. Hayden over to report directly to me because that's the importance of this issue in my mind. I wanted to make sure that we, as an administration, we're doing everything to keep our eyes on the performance. And so Mr. Hayden is part of my team, knows to, and he's the face of the MWBE program and gets out to the community. But one of his primary responsibilities is to make sure that we're doing what we said we were going to do. So having given you such a warm introduction, Mr. Hayden, you can begin speaking, sir.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No pressure.
Madam President, Commissioners, as indicated, my name is Frank Hayden. I am the Director of the Office of Equal Opportunity. And based on that, maybe I should just quit and go right into the questions.
No.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Rouse and the other commissioners, thank you for raising this issue because if my memory serves me correct, the majority of the board were not here when we started on this journey of creating the MBE program. So this will be a good opportunity to educate the others and to make sure that we're heading on the right path. I pushed the up button, nothing happened. Oh, the down button, okay. So they keep me away from electronic things. Let me tell you about some of the existing procurement programs we have. We have a local workforce. The commission adopted this, and that is that on construction projects that if 35% of the work is site work, which in another word is labor, 15% of that would go to local individuals in that geographical area. We monitor that participation on contract. You also adopted a living wage ordinance effective October 1. That is $15 an hour. Prior to that, it was $14 bucks. We monitor that as well. We have a SBE program here that has been in existence for a good while. And now we have our new MBE program that was adopted. This program went into effect on April of this year. Now, it was adopted by the board last year. We worked very closely with the legal department to put together the language of the ordinance, what the program would look like, and so forth and so on. And then based on that, it went into effect in April. To date, we have 25 certified WBEs. We are reciprocal with the Palm Beach County and with the school district. The county has 157. The Palm Beach County schools have 239. Now, let me kind of explain what it is. Our program is different from that of the counties and the school system. It's different in that theirs is controlled by size. In other words, their small business program, $9 million for construction, $5 million for professional service. They use that same dollar standard for their MBE WBE program. So a number of their individuals who are already certified as SBEs can automatically transfer over to the MBE because they meet the size standard. Our program is there is no dollar size standard for the MBE, WBE. You only have to meet the ethnicity standards in order for you to be certified in that category.
Mr. Hayden, before you move off that slide, the 25 certified MBE, NWBE seems small, but I shouldn't overreact to that because we have reciprocity with some of these other jurisdictions?
And you're absolutely right. And we have been working very hard to increase that number. As you know, we have outreach events on a quarterly basis where we share with the general public these opportunities that exist here. We had one where we just dedicated that to certification to help explain to individuals about the opportunities about being certified. So yes, you should be. I am alarmed, but we're going to increase that number, and you're absolutely right. When we put things on the street, we reach out to the county, we reach out to the school system to get their listings of certified individuals so that we can include that in the solicitation as well.
Is there an advantage to someone being certified with us directly as opposed to relying upon reciprocity with the school board and the county?
No, there's no advantage. I just prefer that even though you might have been cleared by somebody else, I'd like for you to fill out my paperwork as well, because I will share this with you. We have found on at least 2 occasions some firms who were certified by the other entities. As we looked into them, they did not meet the requirements. Wow. And when we raised that to the other entities, they also decertified those individuals. So even though we have reciprocity, I am still feel a lot better that when I look at you, I know exactly who you are and what it is that you've done.
Okay. Thank you.
One of the other questions that was asked in terms of the process that we go through in terms of determining participation on our project. So the process includes the project manager, the purchasing agent or contract specialist, a member of the Office of Equal Business Opportunity. We sit down and we have a discussion with them, and we come up with the best strategy in terms of for that particular solicitation. It might be we can piggyback off of an existing contract that was competitively bid. For those items that are less than $50,000, we require at least a minimum of 3 quotes. For $50,000 or greater of a solicitation, we have to go out for competitive bidding on those. The decision to use an SBE, MWBE, participation gold, or sheltered market in cetera is in construction. We can do either of those for professional services and commodities. Should point out that we cannot shelter projects in the professional service category, but we do that in contracts and in commodities. In terms of the disparity study, just letting you know about some of the things that were recommended by that. In the construction for under $500,000 for the SBE program, we use the subcontracting goal of 15% or sheltered market. Under the MBE program, use the subcontracting goals that African Americans is 11.17, Hispanics, Caucasians, and there's a use of a 5% bid equalization for up to $25,000, or we can use the sheltered market component. For professional services under $350,000, the SBE program used the 15% SBE goal or sheltered market. And I need to take it back, we cannot shelter pieces under the professional service, so I apologize for that. Under the MBE program is the use of the subcontracting goals, and you should know that under professional services, the goal for the African American is 9.9, and you should understand that during the disparity study, it was only the African American owned firms who there was a disparity on the professional service side of work. So whenever we sub for opportunities on the professional service, that's the target amount for the African American firm. And then it goes on to speak to you about the goods and services sides of that, where we can shelter those commodities or use a goal of the 15%. And under the MBE program, it is the use of a 5% preference and the equalization system of up to 11,250. For our compliance,
Hold on,
I'm sorry,
Madam.
excuse me.
Yeah, can
Say-
you explain the equalization? I've not heard that concept when it comes to procurement and MWBE programs.
Yes, ma'am. Doing the disparity study, the Mason Tillman Group, who looked at our piece, indicated to us that we could use this 5% preference, or we could use the equalization system that a percentage of the item under the goods and services could be used as an equalization. We have not used that, but it was part of the piece that came out during the disparity study.
So it's the flip side of preference?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Commissioner Rawls, did you have a question?
Yeah, my question kind of goes back from the beginning. You have 25 companies that are certified currently.
Currently, yes, sir.
Can you tell me what's the number of contracts that have been issued to minority vendors?
That is 0.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam President?
Can you talk a little bit about sheltered markets? You've mentioned that a couple times, but I haven't seen a description of that.
Under the shelter market program that the commission adopted back during the SBE program, and we'll also have it under our MBE or MWBE program. We have to have a minimum of 3 firms who can provide that particular service. If we have those 3 firms, then we can shelter that service so that only certified SBEs can propose on that work. The dollar threshold is less than $500,000 that we shelter project. We have sheltered a number of those up so far. We have some mowing contracts that we have sheltered that are with our Parks and Rec, some work for HCD, and some housing rehab, we have sheltered those. Our handyman contracts, we have sheltered those so that we give an opportunity to those SBEs who don't have to compete or wouldn't have to compete against the bigger players to participate.
May I follow up?
Yes.
So I'm confused then, because you're saying we've given contracts to minority and women-owned businesses, but just to Commissioner Riles' question, you answered that we gave 0. So what was that 0 to?
The 0 was under the MBE, WBE program. Under the SBE program, we've done sheltered market. We have just been fortunate that those firms that won the contracts under SBEs happen to be minority-owned firms.
Interesting. Gotcha. Thank you.
So does that mean, and the MWB program has only been around for 6 months, right, since April?
It has only been officially in place since
All
April.
right, so,
yes, sir.
so does that mean that no MWBEs have benefited from the program? I mean, have they been subs on any contracts? So no dollars in 6 months have been, maybe this is on a later slide, have been paid any MWBEs in 6
No,
months?
you are correct. There have been no dollars under the MWBE program.
Okay.
But as I said, there are SBEs who happen to be minorities who have gotten work, but we count those dollars as
the
through
SBE
the
program.
SBEs.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Since we're on this topic,
Sure.
of the 25 who qualify within West Palm Beach, I understand you're saying that we are doing workshops to do outreach to them. Is there more we could be doing to be reaching out to them? And is that an issue, is that we don't have a good quantity to select from, or what is the issue?
My own personal opinion is it is a new program. The advantage that the school system has, in my opinion, is they've had an MBE program for quite a while.
Like 10 years, 20 years?
Yeah, close to that.
Okay.
And so this is a new venture for us. We've got to be able to convince people there are opportunities here by making that happen. We have a solicitation that just came back in a few days ago under our general engineering service contract. We received 78 or 87? 78 firms submitted. We had subcontracting opportunities for MBEs as part of that. And so as a result, depending on how many firms we end up selecting, that will be our first attempt in the area of being inclusive of MBEs as part of our projects. One of the other things is that after this, we'll be putting more out with MBEs on it, which will, in my opinion, force people to come out and get certified so they'll have an opportunity to participate. So I think you'll see your numbers. As we go through the slides, I'm going to show you a process that we go through of tracking dollars and how well, in my opinion, we've done with their SBE program. And I think as we move into the MBE program, we'll do even better in terms of dollars being spent.
Mr. Hayden, because I think the county came out with their program just before we did. Do you know how many, and maybe that was on that earlier slide, how many MWBs the county has? It looks like 157, or is that small and minority business as well, right?
Yes, sir.
So do we know how many MWBEs the county has established in their time?
57 for them. It's 157 for their MWBE.
Oh, so it is
Their
157.
program is just called an S.
Okay, okay, all right. So
So they have
a little bit-
157.
They got a little bit of a head start on us then in
Yes, sir.
terms of the numbers. Okay, very good, thank you. Commissioner Rouse, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, so tell me, in terms of the contracts that have been issued since April, have all of them had an MWBE requirement?
Since April.
Yeah. That's when you started the program, correct?
No, sir, they have not.
Why?
Because, Commissioner, we didn't have anyone within our pool to be able to put a solicitation out on the street to have MBE participation as part of it. We had to build up our database, be able to have that and available. I don't know how, when we reach out to the county and to the school system, we ask them for the names of their certified individuals as well to participate. But we have just not had the data to be able to make that happen. And so we concentrated most of our effort over the last few months of getting folks certified to be a part of our program.
Well, I don't really understand that. I don't understand that because, I come from the mindset, if you build it, they will come. And if you put the contract out and you had an MWBE requirement, I'm certain you would find some MWBEs to participate. Do you believe that to be untrue?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay, so then why didn't you have an MWBE requirement in the contracts?
Because at the time, Commissioner, we did not have any to participate. I could have put it out on the street, you're absolutely right. They could have applied for it, and they might have been certified as an MWBE, but as I stated earlier, we have found that certification through other entities does not necessarily meet the requirements that we set. And so I feel a lot more comfortable when I have certified a company that I know that they are certified in that particular category.
Yes.
Who does the certification here at the city?
We do.
We as in you and this young lady?
And yes, sir. And there's another young lady that does the certification.
So you got 3 people doing certification.
We have, yes, 2 people doing
And
certification.
do you have an outreach program?
Yes, sir.
And what's that?
We do a quarterly outreach. Every quarter we do one. We also have what we call a business to business, where we invite firms in-house to share with our project managers what services they provide.
Stop there. Tell me what that means. I don't know what that means.
Well, a company does marketing, for example. They're a small business. So we will invite them to come in and do what I call as your dog and pony show. We get those project managers in the room who could use those services so that they can hear the pitch from that individual. And that way, these folks get an opportunity to talk directly to those individuals who can use their services. And it has turned out quite well because a number of firms have gotten work out of the city because of that process.
That's your minority outreach?
That is one of them, sir. I just said we do community outreach as well, where we go out on a quarterly basis and have meetings.
Well, you started in April, so that means you've gone out once.
No, we have been out more than once in April. I said we do one at least once a quarter, plus our other programs we do. We partner with the school system. If they have an event, we participate. If the county has an event, we participate in that as well. We just finished with our matchmaker piece in September, where we also talk to folks at that event as well. So whether or not we do it, we partner with other agencies to make that happen as well.
Okay.
And I might also add, I mean, if commissioners, if you are aware of businesses, this goes for the entire commission, through your travels, through your districts and to the community, please send them our way. I mean, I think the first indicator of the key metric is going to be the number of businesses that are certified in our city. And we're looking to grow that. Okay, continue with, yes, Ms. Johnson.
Let me just ask a question, and I don't want to confuse programs, but just based on my experience with MWBE programs, typically when you are putting together the bid, you look at the availability of those particular firms for whatever service you're going out. Does our program operate on that basis, where you look for the availability and then you determine whether or not you have availability and then include it in whether you're doing the RFP, ITB, or what have you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
And when we do, I'm sorry.
So given the contracts that we have let between April and up to the one that you have now included it in, you all did an analysis of the availability of MWBEs and made a determination that we did not have any that were certified, so you were not in a position to include it in the RFP.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. Continue, sir. Thank you.
Sir. In the compliance process, we use a PRISM software for tracking. There are 3 compliance letters that we send out. First is when a vendor is awarded a contract, we send them a letter that lays out for them those items that we expect them to submit to us when they apply for payment. That will allow us to determine whether or not they are paying or utilizing their MBEs or SBEs. Then, if they have not met that criteria, then they'll get a letter from us that is monitoring, that basically indicates to the vendor that according to our records, you have not made a payment to your SBE. And if our records are incorrect, would you please correct our records? If we have, and in that thing, we give them 30 days to make that happen. If that has not occurred, then they will get a non-compliance letter from us, which will indicate that if they don't make the improvement within the time frame stipulated, that we can withhold their payment, or they can be deemed non-responsive in terms of their contract. To date, we have not had any of that to occur. This is basically that we have not had any contracts with our MBE program over the last 6 months. We just talked about the one that we had 78 submittals that came in on the 9th, and there was a MWBE sub-consultant goal of 9.9% on that. This is a report that we do quarterly that talks about, shows up how our expenditures are going and captures those dollars that are being spent with the SBEs, whether they're a subcontractor or whether they are a prime contractor. Last year, for the whole year, we did roughly about a little bit more than $9 million in that area. This year, that number is $14 million that we have spent in that area. This will be the same process that we'll use when we're tracking the dollars for the MBEs and WBEs on our program, so that we can be assured of the fact that we are spending the money properly in those areas. And you should know our percentage is 15% on our contract. This year, we're up to a little over 23% in terms of those dollars that we have spent with our certified SBEs. And it'll be the same thing when we get with our MBEs. This is where these ordinances.
Hold on, Mr. Hayden.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Fana has a question.
Just Armando Fon, Assistant City Administrator, just to clarify, because you had mentioned that some of the SBE contracts are also minority women-owned firms. So
Yes.
is that breakdown available? I think that may be significant in some cases to be able to showcase that. Even though we haven't had any new contracts for the 6 months that the program has been in place, we may already be meeting some of the goals under the SBE.
Yeah, we can break that down to make that help with that determination.
Commissioner Rouse.
Yeah, I have a question. Now, you indicate that you had no data on the minority firms, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then how could you make a determination of availability if you had no data?
When I said we had no data in terms of when we were putting solicitation out on the street, I need to know who I have that's available or certified to participate. That was the data that we looked at. We determined we did not have any.
So how could you make an availability determination?
I don't understand, Commissioner. When you say
There
available.
were no companies certified.
Yeah.
Right, you had data.
Right. Well, I didn't have any data of those certified individuals. I had data of certified SBEs, but it was looking for the MBE participation on the project.
Okay.
But I think it's safe to say we will continue to work hard, to build the number of certified MBEs in our city, and we will continue the aggressive outreach effort. Is that safe to say?
Yes, sir.
Don't mean to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, no, Mr. Mayor, I will say that we, in procurement, when I was a part of it, and now in this new role, we take very seriously creating opportunities and working very hard to bring about some opportunities for our folks. I have been extremely frustrated over the fact that we have not got as many certified MBEs and WBEs in our program. And we've worked very hard in terms of attempting to make that happen. And I will confess to you, this time next year or at the end of this quarter, you will see some numbers where we're providing dollars to MWBEs within this program, because that's where we're functioning and working on.
Commissioner Neering, did you have a?
Are you done? I'd rather wait till you're done because I have a couple questions. I can wait.
I guess I'm done.
No, don't be done.
Madam President, did you have?
Sure, I had a
I do have
question.
questions.
Okay.
Did you want to go?
No, I made a statement and I wasn't sure, so you just went right there. I was asking. but you go
Okay,
ahead,
I'm
Mayor.
sorry, I'm sorry. You were, okay.
I didn't want to cut him off is what
No,
I was saying.
I'm-
So
That's
you
fine.
have questions.
Okay, Commissioner Neary.
Thank you, Mayor. So, under the shelter, I want to go back to the question around the sheltered market. It was my understanding, just from that disparity study, but maybe I heard it wrong, and I'm not sure if you presented on it today, but can that be used, can sheltered markets be used in an MBE?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So they absolutely can be used?
Yes, sir.
in MBE. Okay.
Right.
All right. The other thing is, you talked about, and I think we went a little bit into this, but we talked about the availability. As a part of the disparity study, that was articulated, right, to a certain degree in terms of what the availability was almost like in concentric circles, I guess, here in West Palm Beach County, and then maybe South Florida.
Yeah.
So are we then using that information to set the goals for each contract? How are we coming up with that? Like, because we talked about a 9.98 MWBE subcontract goal on, I think, this latest contract that went out.
Right.
How's that number determined, that percentage?
That percentage was determined by the disparity study. That as they looked around, they determined that it was 9.9%, less than 10%, a disparity of African-American firms for professional service on their end. And so that's the number that we use. It's based on that number that was developed through the disparity study.
And then I think just a comment, I mean, we, preaching to the choir here, but, a policy is only as good as how it's enacted. And I think, and I know that this particular program and the work that we're trying to do here is quite frankly new to the city. We've done, not just this commission or this administration, but just when you go back to the history of the city, we've done quite a bit of lip service, and now we literally have a tangible tool to use. So I sense, and this is me calling it out, I sense a frustration in this, and I think it's partly because now that we have a tool, we have to get beyond, and again, these are my comments, and please, I don't want anybody to come away with, I'm not throwing rocks here, but we finally have a tool, and we have to get beyond just to talk about it. So to your point, Mr. Hayden, you said in a year from now and 6 months from now that we're absolutely going to be able to see, or we should be able to see, a change in that. And that's not just on you, that's on the city in general. So I want to be clear about this. I mean, I think we all of our feet are to the fire on this particular policy. But again, my comment is any policy is only as good as how we enforce it, how we enact it. And I'd like to see where we have on a regular rotation, and I know we've talked about it, but I still can't recall where we've had developers in the 5 years that I've been on this dais to say, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and we're going to have job training programs, and we're going to make sure that on our site that local folks are benefiting from it. I've never, in the 5 years that I've been on, and I've said this before, I've never had that group then come back to us, or the city, quite frankly, come back to us and show that those things have happened. So I think that's the at least from my standpoint, that's the frustrating part. I am happy that we have something now very tangible. It's all the legalities have been worked out, and it's really the enforcement of it. So that's more rhetorical than anything, but I do hope that in 6 months from now, and a year from now, I'll just say 6 months from now, that we're at a much different place in this.
Again, this is a 6-month program, and if I recall your presentation, Mr. Hayden, you proposed to send to the mayor and the commissioners a dashboard report similar to what, on this program, similar to what you've been sending out on the SBE program. We have the technology in place. We have the ability to monitor those dollars, and you will be producing this report on a quarterly basis. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, as to the point about whether any projects, development projects have performed, I urge any of you to talk to the developers of the Bristol project and hear what their numbers have been, because they have, from what I've heard from them, exceeded the promises that were made to the city commission. I don't think you were on there on the dais at the time, Commissioner, when they were getting that contract. That's one example. There may be others out there, but if you're looking for tangible evidence of developers who have performed, I encourage you to get the information from at least the Bristol. Madam President, you had a...
I do have a couple questions, thank you. I appreciate what you were sharing with us about the opportunities that you're providing where the minority and women-owned business owners can present to existing contractors. Did I understand that correctly? Is beyond that, how do contractors identify MWBE organizations to be able to work with them? Or I don't work in that industry, so I don't know if that is just known. Do these MWBE organizations identify themselves? I'm sorry?
No, it's a whole database. That's the point of getting them to register.
When we do a solicitation, we provide a list of certified individuals who can perform in that area that we're doing a solicitation to.
And that's based on the 25 that we have.
That, and not only the 25 we have, well, as I said, we reach out to the county to find out if they have some individuals in that category, and also to the school system. So the list we provide lists all of those entities out there to let the vendor know that these are the ones that are available in those categories.
Okay, great. Thank you. And my second question is, so we have the 25 who've qualified. Are there business owners who have approached us, the city, to apply for this program who maybe didn't qualify for other reasons? Are there other, I'm not sure, their business plan or something that we're providing assistance or coaching or pointing them in the right direction or helping them get their feet underneath them to be able to qualify?
The answer to your question is yes. Most folks who apply for certification, if they are denied, for example, under the small business program, they would be denied because they didn't meet the dollar threshold, or they hadn't been in business long enough to meet the requirement. Under the MBE program, the only thing that would keep you out is if you propose to be X and it turns out that you're not that. But aside from that, yes, in answer to your question, we have met with some local banks, for example, because we know that their upfront funding is a problem for a number of firms. They have agreed to offer assistance to those, whether it's a line of credit, upfront funding for these firms, as long as they meet the requirements that the banks require. We're having some discussion with some bonding firms who have programs to assist minority-owned or small businesses who need some bonding. We have relationships with SCORE and some other entities that if you need some help formulating what your business plan is, that you can go to those individuals to help and work out in that regard. So yes, we will do all that we can to assist individuals to get to that level that they need to be successful in the business. Because we want to help these people become successful, and if they're qualified to perform the work, we want them to have an opportunity to do that.
Thank you.
And I think it's also important that while we may have 25 MBE certified, those 25 don't necessarily have qualifications for every contract that comes before the city for particular goods or services. So you can't even say that the universe of potential MBEs to respond to a particular contract is as broad as 25.
That's very true, Mr. Mayor, and you really don't understand how difficult and how hard it is that we work every day to get more people to come in and to participate in what it is that we're providing here at the city.
In a variety of areas,
Yes,
whether it's
yes,
certain
sir.
goods, whether it's certain services, so that we have a very broad universe, an inventory of businesses that can respond on any given day to any given contract.
Yes, sir. You're absolutely right about that. And like I said, to us, it doesn't matter if it's a $4,000, $3,000, $5,000, or $20-some thousand. As you all aware, B.D. Stevens built the fire station, right? So it was $5 million. It's the only African-American firm which has built a fire station that I'm aware of in the county for that sum of money. We have an African-American firm which is renovating the Sunset Lounge. That dollar figure, I think, is going to end up in somewhere around $12 million. I mean, so we are making some inroads into that. And that's why I say, I think at the end of the day, you all will be very proud of what it is that the city of West Palm Beach is doing to assist individuals in that area.
Commissioner Rouse, you have a question?
Yeah, I just have one, and I don't mean this disrespectfully.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hayden, how many MWBE or MBE programs have you participated in implementing before this one?
When I was with the city of Detroit, I created their MBE WBE program, and it was the best in the state of Michigan that existed there. When I came to the South Florida Water Management District, they had an MBE WBE program, but the governor at that time decided that we'd have Florida first. So I developed an SBE program for the South Florida Water Management District. Within that program, I developed a number of pieces that we had in the old the sheltered market and so forth, so that I know I can target for those small businesses. So, Commissioner Rouse, in answer to your question, this is not my first rodeo, sir.
But you would agree that there was a disparity found at the South Florida Management District?
Before I got there, they had their MBE program at South Florida. So what happened was the governor decided that we did not need that program, so we had to create a small business program. So I don't know what happened before then, because I didn't come to 2001.
Right, but
Yes, sir.
from 2001, and the disparity study was just recently done. So there was a disparity over that 10-year period of time.
There was no disparity study done at South Florida.
Yes.
Not at the Water Management District where I work.
Solid Waste Authority.
Solid Waste
All right,
Authority,
all
yes,
right,
sir.
I got
There
you.
was
I
one
got you,
done
I
there.
got you, I got you.
And Commissioner, I would tell you, when I first came to the city of West Palm Beach, a little over 6 years ago, that commission at that time indicated that they wanted to do a disparity study. And I'm going to be very honest with you. I have a problem paying someone to tell me something everybody knows that we've been discriminated against. But we did it anyway. And we came up with it because we knew that there were disparities out there. But the federal law requires us to prove that it exists. And so that's what we did. We had to prove it. And I'm telling you, sir, as I stand here today, before I'm finished, you're going to be very proud of what it is that the city of West Palm Beach has been able to do.
Commissioner Neary.
Thanks, Mayor. So, Mr. Hayden, quick question. One of the things when we adopted the disparity study, one of the questions that I had asked was, is there a possibility, would we consider retaining support, given the bandwidth of the city? And that's not to say that we don't have experts in-house to do that work, but there's a finite amount of resources. And so one of the questions that I have is, are we doing that? Are we working with anyone, or did we retain anyone to help implement this program? That's one question. And the other question is, or the other statement is, I've seen where we have commissioned studies, and we have held on to those consultants to help us implement those measures. So I know that there's a history of that. So the question is, are we using any outside resources, Mr. Hayden, to help us implement what is new to the city? Not new to you, but new to the city. That's my question.
I think we're using outside resources, and those outside resources are the community. We are not paying anyone to come in and assist us in where it is that we need to go. And I'm always open for help. But once again, I think through the help of our legal department and, like I said, people in the community, I think over and all we've done an excellent job in terms of where we are. But I'm smart enough to know that, you know, if I'm given the directions that we ought to make that happen, we're going to go out and find the best we can to assist us to get to where we need to be, sir.
All right, any other questions, comments from commission? Thank you very much, Mr. Hayden, and I look forward to hearing additional reports, quarter, 6 months.
I do have a question about
Thank
that.
you, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry, Madam President.
You mentioned these reports. I'm just wondering if these quarterly reports could be more than just the data and the numbers, which is very important, but you mentioned the Bristol, and there might be other stories that could be told that then inspire others to want to sign up or get involved or follow through. Just an idea.
Anecdotal information in addition to the data. Yeah, we can certainly work on
Yes,
on
we
on
can
that.
take a look at that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.